Can you hear me now?
Yes, Madam Chair, I can hear you via Zoom.
I think the public can, but I don't know about the room.
There is.
Testing. Is that better? Little louder?
Okay.
Does that sound good? Okay. Good morning. We'll take roll.
Senator Guru. Senator Landon. Senator Salazar. Senator Schuler. Chairwoman Ellis.
Present. Well, good morning. In the audience today, we have my House Co-Chair, Representative Flitner, and Vice Chair Sandy Newsom, Representative. And our first bill on our agenda is House Bill 58. And I believe Representative Newsom was going to walk us through this bill and explain what happened during the interim.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Committee. Wyoming is home to 12 amazing national parks and 25 historic sites. These parks and historic sites span over 100,000 acres of our state's wide open spaces. The stunning scenery of Wyoming state parks range from granite outcroppings to pristine lakes to largest mineral hot springs in the world. In the summer, visitors to our parks number in the millions. There's been a 36% increase in park visitation since 2016. In 2016, our parks hosted 4.1 million visits, and this number grew to 5.8 million visits in 2020. During the summer, Glendale State Park often hosts up to 20,000 visitors, making it the third largest city in Wyoming. Increasing visitation, increasing costs, and decreasing budgets have created challenges for our state parks. In the Step 1 and Step 2 cuts, the state parks cut $1.1 million, including 3 full-time positions and 17 seasonal employees. All the funds collected from state park user fees go back into our state parks and historic sites in the form of capital construction and major maintenance and interpretation. In 2015, it was recognized that building new facilities without the funds to maintain the improvements was unsustainable. Currently, 30% of the funds collected can be allocated to general maintenance. In this bill, that percentage that can be used for non-capital construction would increase up to 60%. The acceptable forms of uses of these funds would expand to include not only general maintenance, but also operational costs. With the definition expansion, this bill would ensure a quality visitor experience and allow state parks to ensure health, safety, and enjoyment of our visitors. These funds would go towards paying power bills, buying lawnmower blades, and cleaning supplies. So if you wouldn't mind, we'll quickly walk through the bill. On page 1, it states that the bill would modify spending authority. As you move on to page 2, lines 6 and 7, the up to percentage would change from 30% to 60%. This up to amount is not mandated, and that the entire 60% would not have to be spent on maintenance and operational costs, but could be spent in those ways. As we move down to lines 9 and 10, it broadens the definitions of how the funds can be used. And then under the new definition, power bills, buying lawnmower blades, and cleaning supplies would be acceptable uses of these funds. This can also be used for hiring seasonal staff, but not for hiring full-time employees. Section 2 provides for an immediate effective date, so this can be enacted for this summer's tourist season. The passage of this bill will allow our agencies to continue to be a significant part of our thriving tourism economy by offering the best products and services for the industry. Without passage of this bill, the agency will go back to the drawing board and determine which parks or historic sites would need to be closed in order to compensate for the reduction of funds in Step 1 and Step 2. I stand for questions.
Thank you, Representative Newsom. Questions from the committee? Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question on page 2. It mentions maybe it could be expanded for capital construction projects. Do they have some projects in mind that they're looking at trying to do with these funds, or do you know?
They do have capital construction projects, and how this works is This raises about $3.3 million a year, as you'll see in the fiscal note. And what they do is they save money until they can, and they have a plan until they can afford to do capital construction. So with this, they're allowed to save money. They're allowed to accumulate funds until they have enough to do a bigger project.
Additional questions? Senator Schuler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I'm glad to see that the money could be used for seasonal staff, because I think that's huge where they lost 17 seasonals last year. Any idea on where they would be allocated, or how those staff members, would it just be on a need basis, or how does that work?
I'm
Representative Newsom?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm not sure. I think Director Westby will be on the call, and so I think he has a better idea. But I think what we need to remember is when you have Glendale State Park with 20,000 people, that law enforcement becomes a big deal. You know, just cleaning becomes a big deal. Those things that you would have in a city become a big deal.
Any follow-up questions for Representative Newsom? Senator Landon?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I apologize for coming in a little slowly here. What, where is the reference, and how do we, how are we able to hire the additional seasonal staff? Where am I missing that?
Representative Newsom?
And
And Representative, just so you know, I'm very much in favor of knowing the kind of impact that we face. I'm in favor of that, but I just can't find it.
on page 2, line 9, it says for maintenance and operational costs associated, and seasonal employees are included in operational costs.
Thank you for that.
Okay, any other questions for Representative Newsom? See, we have Director Westby on the Zoom. Thank you so much, Representative.
Thank
Good.
you, Madam Chairman.
Good presentation. Director Westby, we'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, Chairwoman Ellis and Committee. Darren Westby, Director of State Parks and Cultural Resources. And with me, I have Dave Glenn and Nick Nalen, my two deputy directors with the State Park side of the agency. And I think Vice Chair Newsom did a great job of explaining the need for the bill, and a lot of the questions that you were asking. I think Nick Nalen can probably answer the best. If I can turn it over to Deputy Nalen.
Mr. Nealon?
Madam Chairwoman, the question about where the seasonal employees would go, I think the answer is we would use these positions statewide. In addition to law enforcement, as the representative mentioned, we would use these for things like cleaning, for fee collecting, for interpretation positions, for staffing, visitor centers. There's a whole variety of different places and ways that we would use these statewide.
Director Nealon, can you talk a little bit about the law enforcement piece and how that works?
Sure, Madam Chairman, certainly. Right now we hire, we have 5 full-time law enforcement people statewide. We hire an additional 25 seasonal law enforcement staff each year. With the increase in attendance, a 36% increase in attendance, our larger parks, some of them saw larger than 200% increases last year, and that kind of traffic can be overwhelming. So this could, if we need them, allow us to hire additional law enforcement personnel to help with those situations.
And are those officers post-certified?
Madam Chairwoman, yes, they are.
And where do they generally come from? Is it, our municipalities, or I'm just trying to think of how you bring in that extra workforce?
Madam Chairwoman, a lot of the folks that we hire are retired law enforcement from other communities in Wyoming. Some of them are part-time seasonal law enforcement who work other jobs in law enforcement in communities around the state. And we are making an effort to try to reach out and bring in people from other areas as well, people who were looking for perhaps a career in state parks that we could introduce as law enforcement and give them exposure and opportunities.
And then one final question on the law enforcement piece. Do you think having that 25 additional seasonal plus your 5 full-time is adequate to meet the needs that you're seeing, or is there a greater need?
Madam Chairwoman, last year with the increased attendance, again, we did hire, or we had the opportunity to hire 5 additional seasonals with some of the CARES funding. By the time we received that funding and were given the go-ahead to hire, it was a little late in the season, and we had some trouble recruiting the additional law enforcement personnel to meet our needs. I think with this legislation being potentially effective immediately, as Representative Newsom said, that we would have plenty of time to hire additional staff should we need them this year.
And then along those lines, reading the bill, it says that the legislature still has legislative approval on line 9. So it says not more than right now 30% of the funds in the account of any fiscal year may be expended with legislative approval for maintenance and the other items. How does that work since we're in the middle of a session right now? When you say it's going to take immediate effect, I just want to understand how that, if you've already got an adjustment built into one of the appropriations bills.
Madam Chairwoman, I'm going to defer to Director Westby on that question because I'm not entirely certain of the answer.
Madam Chairwoman Ellis, basically, we're not asking for any increases or decreases within our budget with this bill. This is strictly how we can pay our bills. It's not generally funded. It will be other funded. So we're shifting that 1.1 million, shifting that ability to go from general fund to other fund to pay the bills.
Any other questions for the director or deputies? Senator Schuler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a question on the signage. My understanding is that quite often the signs get beat up and shot at and destroyed, and just wondered how that works with this increased expenditure.
Director Westby or Mr. Nayland?
Madam Chairwoman, Senator Schuler, we have good relationships with whiteout sign shops around the state and are constantly looking to replace and repair those signs as needed. And the addition of these funds would certainly help in that effort.
Further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, gentlemen. And if you don't mind just staying there, we've got another bill coming up and we might have some additional questions. Alrighty, is there anyone else on the Zoom that would like to testify?
Madam Chair, not at this time. If anybody else wants to testify, can you please raise your virtual hand and you'll be promoted to the meeting?
While we do that, is there anyone in the audience that wants to testify? Oh, Madam Chair, Madam Co-Chair, welcome.
Madam Chairman, committee, thank you and good morning. And I just thought I'd kind of just touch on some of the pushback that we received in the House with regard to the funds. There was some concern that this agency was maybe circumventing the process, but these are dollars generated from fees, user fees. And state of Wyoming has built up these assets statewide. So we can make 2 decisions. We can either decide to maintain those assets and keep them open and functioning because of our burgeoning and growing recreation economy, or we can make decisions to shut some of those down. So for me, it was fairly logical, but for some, it wasn't. So just so you know, that might be some of the pushback you'll get.
Madam Co-Chair, was there any discussion in the interim or on the House side about what might be on the chopping block if we don't
No,
take action?
that'd be a good question for Director Westby.
Director Westby?
Chairwoman Ellis, it's a good question, and we, on a constant basis, go through the analysis of what ifs. And unfortunately, we don't have a current list of anything, the catastrophic, the nuclear option, in hopes that we don't have to go down that route. But if this bill doesn't pass, we'll definitely have to circle the wagons and really try to figure out what is going to happen and which historic sites or state parks or portions of state parks would have to be decreased to try to ensure that we can make ends meet.
Then Director Westby, just so we have maybe a good understanding, what is the total amount that right now the 30% generates and then going to 60% generates about, just so we have some kind of hard numbers that we can think about.
Sure. Right now with our current fees, as they're sitting there, that 30% is about 1 million, a little over $1 million that it'll generate for the opportunity to utilize for maintenance and operations.
So by doing 60%, then you'd have 2 million available roughly?
Well, Madam Chairwoman, we're currently utilizing about $1 million, $1.2 million to offset those fees, offset the maintenance cost right now. Going up to another 30% would give us another $1 million to offset the budget reduction that we just took in step 2 and step 3 in this last budget reduction.
And again, just so we are fully prepared, what were those? You said step 1 cut was 1.1 million, is that right?
Step 2 and 3 were 1.1 million for the park side of the house.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from the chair? Senator Salazar?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Director, a quick question. What this bill, or maybe, so what this bill is doing is simply transferring monies from one account to another. This is not a revenue, this is not a fee increase or anything like that. You're simply transferring money that normally would be in savings or being held and actually then just using that money for operational purposes, correct?
Director Westby?
Madam Chairwoman, Senator Salazar, thank you for that question. It gives me the opportunity to really try to hammer home that this is not an increase in fees. We have statute that has caps set on all of our fees that we can charge in state parks and historic sites. And so we are operating underneath that cap through rules, and we've just gone through a fee increase. And I apologize for the beeping noise. I got the great city out plowing some roads and clearing some of the big drifts. So I apologize for the backup beeping. But we're currently operating under our existing fee statute, which we're very pleased to say that we're doing really well with our fees. But you're 100% correct that the use of our fees within this current bill and with the current statute with the current bill, expanding our definition from just purely being able to use our fees for capital construction and maintenance and extending it to operational. We are just shifting where in the checking book where the fees are coming or where the bills are being paid. They're not being paid out of the general fund anymore. The roughly $1.1 million will be paid by fees, which is a special revenue.
Any further questions? Senator Landon?
So Director Westby, just so that I've got it in my mind correctly, this is primarily just holding on to what we have. It doesn't seem to me that we've got enough money to be adding a whole lot new, but what do you have in mind specifically for this increase that we're going to put to maintenance?
Director Westby?
Thank you, Chairwoman Ellis. And Senator, that another great question. We're literally just trying to continue operations exactly as we've done in the past, literally in the past. We're not asking for increasing the ability to maintain more or operate more. What we're asking for is just being able to pay our bills. This up to language is truly saving our bacon. And this bill's passage is very important for us to continue operating exactly as we have in the past. It's not, like I said, it's not increasing the opportunity for us to go out and grow as much as we would like. As I think some of us have discussed in our meeting earlier this year, we're truly trying to be the leader in helping us in that tourism industry, and as a major tourism product, try to be that leader, not only to come out of this crisis with the pandemic, but with the financial crisis. As a major tourism product, we have the ability to really increase the revenues for the state of Wyoming and selfishly increase the revenues for our agency and have the ability to do more. If our visitation goes up, our opportunity to do more construction, maintain better, potentially expand our product offering by taking on another state park or another historic site to increase the potential visitation and tourism product. That's exactly what we'd like to do. But this bill sets it in motion that gives us abilities to, but right now, all it does is keep us on a level playing field going forward.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Any further questions for our House counterparts or the director? Senator Schuler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'm impressed with this bill is that the joint TRW kind of got creative. And I'm sure there was a lot of input by the TRW, I mean, the outdoor rec folks. But honestly, I think this is a diamond in the rough, being able to just move your funds around to be able to take care of that huge increase in visitors that you had come through the state. So my hats off to the folks that were on the joint committee. Thank you.
Alrighty, any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Director. I think we've got someone in the audience, Mr. Brown, who'd like to testify. Welcome, please identify.
I hate to use positive qualifiers when referring to being down, but Wyoming was fortunate with our visitor economy to only be down 25%. And so we were in a better position comparatively to the rest of the nation. That was largely due to the fact that Wyoming has a bounty of wide open space, our great national parks and our state parks as well. Madam Chairwoman, in 2020 in Wyoming, overnight visitor volume decreased by 21.5% or 2 million visitors. Travel spending declined by 25.3% or $1 billion. Tax receipts generated by travel spending were down 20.7%. And Madam Chairwoman, as the state's largest private sector employer, unfortunately, we were down 6,000 jobs in 2020. The industry was hit hard. Had it not been for the high volume of visitors to our state and our national parks, we would have been in an even more difficult financial situation. As tourism and hospitality is the state's second largest industry, the revitalization of the visitor economy is going to be critically important for Wyoming's overall economy to rally in 2021. And it looks to be a banner year. We are expecting even higher demand at our state and national parks. You know, we hear a lot about our national parks. We hear Yellowstone and Grand Teton quite a bit, and those are obviously our major hooks that draw people in, not just domestically, but from around the world. But the state parks play a critically important role as well. And due to their geographic diversity, they contribute all across Wyoming versus focusing things in just one center of this one particular part of the state. And in many areas, the state park is the primary destination driver. Hot Springs with Thermopolis, for example, or up in Platte County. So what our position is that House Bill 55 would provide for much needed the ability for state parks to maintain, to continue to improve sites across the state. Personally, my family and I visit the state park that's just outside of Cheyenne here quite a bit. And I can speak from personal experience that it's well maintained, that it's kept clean. I know my favorite site by number. And so to maintain that, not only to be able to welcome in the hopefully significant pent up demand that we're anticipating this summer, but more importantly, for them to be in the shape to create return visits, to have that memorable experience be, we want to go back to Wyoming next year as well. That's what we're looking to do. We're not just looking to rebuild the state's second largest industry, we're looking to grow it. And we feel like this bill gives the state park some additional flexibility and thinking outside the box within their own budget to do just that. And so we appreciate your consideration and support of this bill. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Brown? Senator Landon.
You know, I think you might have just coined the next phrase. We want to go back to Wyoming. I think that's pretty good. So thank you.
We'll see how
for
that shakes out.
Yeah. No, Chris, we appreciate the information on the hospitality and tourism industry. We took up a measure a week or 10 days ago that affected those industries in my mind, and this information is really helpful. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Further questions for Mr. Brown? Seeing none, thank
Thank
you.
you, Chairwoman Ellis.
Alrighty, just to make sure, is there anyone else on the virtual meeting? Please raise your hand if you'd like to testify.
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Alrighty, public comment is closed. Committee, what's your pleasure? The bill's been moved. Any discussion? Any amendments on page 1? Any amendments on page 2? Seeing none, we'll take roll.
Senator Guru,
Excused, and he's in appropriations, just for the good of everyone's knowledge.
yeah. Senator Landon. Senator Salazar. Senator Schuler. Chairwoman Ellis. 4 ayes, 1 excused.
Alrighty, committee members, who would like to take this to the floor and explain the bill? I'm looking at, I think Senator Schuler. Alrighty, thank you, Senator. Alrighty, the next bill for our consideration is House Bill 86. Before we leave 58, Senator Landon, I know since you served on appropriations, can you just make sure that you have in your back pocket the step 1, step 2, step 3 reductions, just in case that issue comes up on the floor? I'd appreciate that, sir. Alrighty,
Madam Chairwoman,
yep, Director Westby.
sorry to interrupt. Director or Deputy Director Nick will send out some talking points as well to Senator Schuler and Senator Landon and yourself, the whole committee, if you'd like, just so we have those talking points in your hands, if that would be helpful.
I think that would be great. Thank you. We'd appreciate it. Alrighty. Welcome back, Representative Newsom. We're talking about House Bill 86 with off-road recreational vehicles.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I bring to you House Bill 86 for your consideration. The problem that we're trying to solve is inconsistent licensing of off-road motorcycles, also known as dirt bikes. This bill was brought to me by our local motorsports store, and they sell off-road motorcycles that have titles that list dirt as the type of motorcycle. Under current law, these motorcycles are not able to be licensed even if they have the proper safety equipment. This bill would give clear direction to our county clerks and treasurers on the licensing of off-road motorcycles that are equipped with the proper safety equipment. In 2007, the legislature authorized the licensing of multi-purpose vehicles, also known as ATVs. This bill mirrors the statutes that allowed multi-purpose vehicles to be licensed. In Park County, we have a very large population of off-road users. With the makeup of our county, we often have issues with people operating off-road motorcycles legally on public lands, but they drive a portion of a public road to get to the next section of public land. Another issue that our citizens face is that the U.S. Forest Service assimilates Wyoming state statutes when it comes to vehicle enforcement. So for example, if a person is operating a four-wheeler or side-by-side or a motorcycle on any Forest Service road, it has to be registered. Our sheriff receives a great deal of complaints from citizens as to why they can't ride their off-road vehicles on a Forest Service road. Lastly, Park County residents that register their off-road motorcycles in Montana because they can't register them in Wyoming. So let's just walk through the bill really quickly. Page 1 states the intent of the bill, which is to have the county clerks and treasurers authorization to license off-road motorcycles or dirt bikes, given that they have the proper safety equipment. On page 1, line 10 starts with the creation of a new statute. And then page 2, line 1 defines motorcycles that may be registered. Keep in mind that there is no requirement for these off-road motorcycles to be registered. It is totally up to the owner of the motorcycle. Letter B on line 5 lays out the conditions that must be met before that off-road motorcycle can be licensed. which is the owner wishes to license the motorcycle. The vehicle is primarily ridden for off-road recreation. The vehicle is titled in Wyoming, and the applicant has completed a form created that the vehicle has the required safety equipment. If you've ever registered your ATV, you're familiar with this form. And we've been informed by YDOT that they would just amend that form using the same form. So our county clerks would have that same form, and it would just be whether it's a multi-purpose vehicle or an off-road motorcycle. Page 3, the registration fees are the same as for other motorcycles, and the registration, of course, expires upon transfer of ownership. Page 3, line 15 is the creation of the new subdivision that requires the equipment. And then as you move on, page 4 is about license plates. Page 5 is the line 11 states that off-road motorcycles are not required to be licensed. This is purely at the discretion of the owner. And then page 6, line 8 starts with the safety equipment. Line 21 is the headlamps. Page 7 references tail lamps. Page 8 references rear reflectors and stop lamps. And then page 9 references horns and warning devices. Line 22 on page 9 references mufflers, which continues on to page 10. Page 10 references mirrors and tires, and page 11 is the permission to operate on highways and the direction to the Department of Transportation to create or utilize an existing form, and they've decided to use that existing form. And line 20 provides for an effective date. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, committee. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm just trying to get this straight. So we're not forcing anyone. We're simply saying that if you want to use your off-road vehicle in these normal trails or areas, that you're going to have to register and get licensed to be able to drive that vehicle then into those areas. Is that correct?
Representative Newsom.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The challenge is driving on public roads. So if you want to have your off-road motorcycle on public land, say you're on BLM, which has kind of no requirement for licensure, but you want to then drive on a public road to the next piece of BLM, and that you need to have your motorcycle licensed to be able to drive on the public road. So this is more about driving on public roads than driving on public land, although there is the restriction on public land, on some public land, federal land, that they use Wyoming statutes.
So
Follow up,
Madam
Senator
Chair.
Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What's this? So what's the situation now? They drive, they simply cross the public road without the proper licensing?
Representative Newsom.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes. So if I want to drive the 5 miles to get from point A to point B, and that's a public road, if I'm on that public road with my dirt bike, I'm riding illegally, because at this point, it can't be licensed without this legislation. Where you can drive your ATV, because our ATVs are licensed, so we can drive our ATV from this piece of public land that we're recreating on to the next piece, because in 2007, this legislature decided that ATVs and multi-purpose vehicles would be allowed to be licensed, but they did not include motorcycles into that piece of legislation.
Last question.
Yep, Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the process, when it went through your chamber, did you hear from off-road vehicle owners? What was their reaction to the bill?
Representative Newsom.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. They are supportive of this. Actually, it was brought to me by the motorsports dealer in my town and backed up by the motorsports dealer in Casper.
Okay.
And I'm hoping those folks are on the Zoom. So
Awesome. Further questions for Representative Newsom. Senator Landon.
Thank you, Representative. I really commend you on this bill. I was smiling because I had no idea that you had to go into that many statutes to take care of the lights and then the hubcaps, and then you have to worry about the throttle, and then I'm exaggerating only slightly. So would this then allow these individuals who have, and we're not just talking about dirt bikes, right? Didn't I hear you say that there are some side-by-sides or four-wheelers involved with this bill as well? That's first question. And then the second one, does that allow us to take our dirt bikes into town and ride them in our towns?
Representative Newsom.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The ATVs and side-by-sides are already able to be licensed through those 2007 laws. And this would allow the dirt bikes to be licensed, and it would allow them to come into town if that's where they needed to go to get home, for instance. So if you are leaving your home not wanting to trailer your dirt bike to the dirt bike trails, you could then legally drive your dirt bike from your home to the trails and legally drive home, where at this point you must trailer
Right.
your motorcycle or drive illegally.
Thank you.
Those are your choices.
Yep, and I think that's an important distinction. This is just for Wyoming roadways. You'll see that on page 2, lines 12 and 13. So if you wanted to take your dirt bike to Montana or an outside state, it's not necessarily licensed for that. Is that my understanding?
It is totally, I'm sorry, thank you, Madam Chairman. It is totally licensed to be nationwide. You will have a license plate on your
Okay.
dirt bike.
Gotcha.
So it
Thank
would
you.
be just like any other motorcycle.
Okay. Any other questions for Representative Newsom? Senator Schuler?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I had a question. I actually brought this legislation to a meeting. We have a group over in my part of the country that is trying to get, I guess, better access for ATVs, OHVs, and that sort of thing, even dirt bikes as well. And just had them kind of look over this. And I had a gentleman that asked a question on page 11 about open public road rights of way. It was a question I couldn't answer, and I haven't really found an answer for it. But he asked about, he's a rancher, and he asked about stock right of ways. I've never heard of them, didn't know what they were, but he wondered if that would include those. Do you have any idea on that? Or is that something that maybe he's just dreamt up and?
Representative Newsom?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't know.
Okay, okay.
Senator Landon?
I think what they're referring to, and the good co-chairman probably knows this better than me, but I've driven cattle, and we actually have fenced in areas to the side of a roadway. And sometimes they'll go 5 or 10 miles, and it's actually a fenced in area so that the cattle are not on the roadway itself. It's parallel to the roadway. I hope that helps.
Further questions for Representative Newsom? Thank you so much. Good job. We've got State Parks on the Zoom. Director Westby, if you'd like to introduce your deputy that would like to present on the bill, or if you have any remarks.
Thank you, Chairwoman Ellis. Darren Westby, State Parks Cultural Resource Director again. Yeah, I'd like to introduce Deputy Director Dave Glenn. He's oversees our half of the state parks as well as the Outdoor Rec Office, which oversees the trails as well. So I will introduce Dave Glenn.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman. My name is Dave Glenn. I'm Deputy Director of Wyoming State Parks, Historic Sites and Trails, and I do oversee our ever-growing off-road motorized trails program. We manage, build, and maintain about just under 6,000 miles of trails throughout off-road trails throughout the state of Wyoming. 2012 economic study showed just over $206 million economic impact, direct spending, and off-road vehicle spending annually in Wyoming. We have a new report coming out this year, and hopefully we will see that number increase dramatically. One of the biggest concerns and issues we hear from our constituents, residents and non-residents alike, is the inability to do what Representative Newsom was talking about, to move from one trailhead to another, to move from a campground to a trailhead, or to move from your house to a trailhead. So right now, if you have a motorcycle, you have to trailer that darn bike. And if you've got a family of 5 or 6, you've got to trailer 5 or 6 road bike or dirt bikes, go to the trailhead, unload, go up the trail, come back, load them back up. If you have an OHV, a quad runner like we do that's licensed, we can just drive them down the road to do that. So we think it's a good customer service piece, and it helps us move the ball towards that ever growing economic impact of off-road vehicles throughout the state of Wyoming. And I think it provides a great service to our residents and our non-residents alike. And it's more equitable between quad runners and dirt bikes as well.
Alrighty, questions for Mr. Glenn? Senator Landon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I thought I heard a figure as to off-road impact in Wyoming last year. Dave, can you give that to us again?
Mr. Glenn?
Madam Chairwoman, Senator Landon, the figure that we have been using is the $206 million. If you throw in snow machines and snowmobiles, that gets up to about $400 million annually impact. That's direct spending.
Follow-up questions, Senator Landon? Nope. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Senator Salazar?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Glenn, I guess I want to make sure the intent is not just to generate revenue, it's for uniformity. Is that correct?
Mr. Glenn?
Madam Chairwoman and Senator Salazar, yes. It may affect us. Maybe somebody would buy another off-road vehicle registration sticker to ride on those trails because they would have the ability to drive from one place to another, but it is not considered a revenue generator. It's just more equitable.
Further questions for Deputy Director Glenn? I have one just to make sure that I'm understanding this. You talk about the Assimilative Crimes Act. Maybe this is just a point of information, but it's basically a federal law that says rather than the federal code having to adopt really technical, off-road use laws at the federal level, what this law says is federal agencies can more or less borrow state law and make it federal law, is my understanding of it. And so when Wyoming passes something like this, it becomes federal law and applicable on U.S. Forest Service lands. I just want to make sure am I understanding that correctly?
Madam Chairwoman, to the best of my knowledge, yes. I am no expert in that, but when we have created new laws such as this, when the legislature has done that, the federal agencies have adopted that. Just last year, we expanded the width of the vehicles on the trails, and the feds came in and adopted that as well.
Any other questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone else on the virtual that would like to testify? I don't see anyone else in this room unless Madam Co-Chair would like to offer some remarks. No.
Madam Chair, there are 2 individuals. I'm bringing them into the room right now, Mr. Croker and Mr. Ode.
Thank you. For the record, just identify yourself. We'd appreciate it. And this is former Representative Croker. Welcome. Welcome back to the legislature.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. My name is Kendall Croker. For those of you who don't know me, I spent a couple terms in the House, but I also own Casper Mountain Motorsports, power sports dealership here in Casper, Wyoming. And I think I can give a better understanding of how this bill would really impact the average person. There are a couple different types of motorcycles. There are the traditional street motorcycles, think the Harley Davidsons and things that are riding around the streets, and there are dirt bikes that are designed for off-road use. But there's also a class called dual sport, which is designed for on and off-road use, and they are street legal in every state in the union. And basically a lot of the manufacturers, like Honda, for example, has some models that are identical models. One will be street legal and one will not be street legal. And the difference is the one that's street legal has a headlight, tail lights, and turn signals, and a license plate bracket. And it used to be here in Natrona County that a customer could buy a used dirt bike and add the the turn signals, the headlight, the tail light, the license plate bracket, and they would allow them to register it for use on the street. Because when you do that, you could have two models and they're 100% identical. And one's allowed to be driven on the street and one is not now, simply because the title says off-road only and one title says designed for on-road use, but the two motorcycles are 100% identical. And a few years ago in Natrona County, they quit allowing us to do that because they said it was a rule change that came down from the state. And so now they're not. And you get a lot of customers that can't afford a new motorcycle because the new dual sports can be $6,500 to $10,000, but they can find a used dirt bike for $1,500 or $2,000 and spend about $200 or $300 to add the safety features and make it identical to a bike that's allowed to be ridden on the street. And they go down to the courthouse to register it. They're told, no, this is not allowed. And it doesn't really make any sense. If you add all those safety features to a motorcycle, so it's identical to one that's legal to be driven on the street, they should be allowed to drive, to register it and drive it on the street. And that's what this bill would allow them to do. And I think it will have a big impact for the motorcycle riders in Wyoming. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Croker. Questions for Mr. Croker? Seeing none, thank you for taking the time to visit with us. And how cool is technology? You didn't have to do a big drive to Cheyenne.
Oh, yes, it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, who else would like to testify that's on the Zoom? And you'll just turn on your camera and then identify yourself for the record.
Madam Chairman, this is Hans Odie. I apologize. I'm having a difficult time getting my screen to share. Start video. How about that? There I am.
Hi, welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to address yourself and the committee today. My name is Hans Odie. I'm the Deputy County Clerk in Park County. I'd like to thank you again for the opportunity to testify on House Bill 86 today. This is an issue that Representative Newsom brought to our office last summer, and we follow the letter of the law on titling motorcycles. By that, I mean there's a difference, as Mr. Croker explained, there's a difference between titling a street legal motorcycle and a dirt bike. The National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, or NHTSA, applies their safety standards to different motorcycles and will label bikes either for use on public roadways and complies with all state and federal laws, or that the vehicle was not manufactured for public use on public roads or streets. I sent you some examples of MSOs and a NHTSA report in your email that you can take a look at. When a constituent comes into our office with a title transfer for a used motorcycle, we would go to the NHTSA website, enter the VIN number into the decoder that supplies us with that report. And it tells us whether the bike is either compliant or non-compliant with state and federal safety standards. If the bike is compliant, it receives a body code on the title of MC for motorcycle. If the bike is non-compliant, then we apply a body code of DIRT, or DIRT, and that's where the rub comes in. You've heard people talk about it already, and that's exactly what we're talking about. A bike with a body code of MC on the title will be registered and licensed in the treasurer's office, and a bike with the DIRT body code will not be registered. In Park County, we run into problems like this. When a Wyoming person purchases a used bike in Montana that has plates and registration in Montana, and the Montana owner is equipped it with a few things like a horn, mirror, headlight, etc. And the new owner from Wyoming then brings the paperwork into our office. And the first thing we do is run it through the NHTSA website. And it comes back a dirt bike that's non-compliant with safety standards. And we apply a body code of DIRT to that title, and then the treasurer will not plate it. Understandably, at that point, our constituent is not happy with us because they've just spent a couple grand on a new bike, new to them bike, that the day before a Montana resident rode into town, bought a gallon of milk, and rode home, and the Wyoming buyer can't drive it out of his driveway. The County Clerks Association of Wyoming has not taken a stand on this bill, but I can say that we all agree that this would make things simpler on titling side, on the titling side of the transaction. We are already titling multipurpose vehicles that are non-compliant with NHTSA standards, and they are being plated for use on public roadways in Wyoming, as you've heard. This bill would bring these dirt bikes in line with what we are already doing for four-wheelers and side-by-sides in Wyoming. Madam Chairman, that concludes my testimony, and I would stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Odie. Any questions from the committee members? Senator Landon?
Mr. Odie, thank you. That's very helpful. I'm trying to play this out in my mind. If I buy a dirt bike and I think and then I bring it down to the clerk's office to get it titled. I guess what they would probably do is come out to see if I have done to that dirt bike what I need to do that this bill says, which is lights and headlights and horns and the things necessary. Is that playing out the way, is that how it would play out, I guess is the question?
Mr. Odie?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Senator Landon, no, actually, the form that Representative Newsom had spoken about earlier that is supplied by WYDOT is a form that we give to those customers. They fill that form out and they're swearing an affidavit on that form that says that they have done everything they need to do. So the clerk's office is not the enforcer of that law. That would be up to sheriff's deputies, law enforcement, highway patrol, et cetera.
So just a
Follow-up
quick
question,
follow-up.
Senator?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So Mr. Odie, thank you for that. And the representative was good enough to give us that checklist and that form. That's really helpful. And I think the caution for all of us out there is to make sure that that vehicle is what we said that it is, to get it licensed. And otherwise, the sheriff might be visiting with you.
Mr. Odie?
Madam Chairman, thank you. Senator Landon, I agree. That is up to that individual that is licensing and titling that motorcycle to swear out that affidavit that is on that form. And you're right. If they swear that affidavit and the sheriff's office comes back and asks us for that information, we're going to provide it to them. And if they haven't complied with what they said they complied with, I would assume that they would be receiving a ticket.
Thank you.
Mr. Odie, do you have a number of how many citations we see statewide or even in your county, just so we get a sense of, how bothersome this is to these off-road vehicle dirt bike users?
Madam Chairman, I do not. I apologize. I'm not privy to that information. I can find that out if it's something that you want me to pursue.
Mr. Odie, if you have access to just give us a sense, certainly I think everyone's concerned about issuing citations to people. And I think that might help us just have more information about why this is necessary. And certainly, as Representative Newsom pointed out, driving from point A, one parcel to another parcel seems like a pretty minor to me infraction of the law, but no, I'm a law abiding citizen. I don't like breaking the law. So I just want to know how many people are getting dinged. Any other questions for Mr. Odie? Seeing none, thank you so much. And thank you for the email you sent. I think that really helped illustrate the difficulty your office faces with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I appreciate the time this morning.
You bet. Is there anyone else in the Zoom that would like to participate?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Alrighty. Representative Newsom or Chairwoman Flitner, would you like to add anything before we close public comment? Representative Newsom.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to add that in our testimony on the House side, Lacey Bruckner from the Department of Transportation testified that they would be happy to modify that form that currently exists so that we don't have 800 forms that the clerks have to sort through to do this process. And the other testimony that was given in our committee meeting was from Byron Odekoven of Wise Cop, and he said they're supportive of this because, like you said, you don't want to ding a kid that's driving from point A to point B with their dirt bike. So they were supportive of this as well.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Committee, what's your pleasure on the bill? It's been moved. Any discussion on the bill? Rather than go through it page by page, does anyone want to offer any amendments? All righty, seeing none. Senator Landon.
Just to, I just want to salute the effort because I think this is really going to help our constituents out there. And so great job on the bill. Ironically, a couple of years ago, dealt with a similar situation that involved golf carts out at a park near Casper. And we had a very zealous deputy who was just waiting out there by the road, and the boat club happened to be 50 yards worth of road away from the trailer park. And those golf carts were going on the road to get to the trailer park and getting ticketed. And we got that resolved with the sheriff's office. They were great. They worked with us. And we didn't have to get this far, but this kind of use and things going on in the outdoors is just going to continue to increase. And anyway, great job.
Thank you. Senator Schuler.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on that. Thank you, Madam Chairman. The biggest headache I think that our law enforcement have are young kids with dirt bikes trying to get to a place where they can, and I live on the edge of town, so, and near the golf course. So they want to try and there's quite a bit of area out there where they can go, but there's a little bit of roadway that they've got to be on. And I'll tell you what, it's a headache. So this will really, I think, help our law enforcement quite a bit and help our constituents as well. So thank you.
Further comments? Well, one kind of side effect of this is I have a family who loves their toys, snowmobiles, dirt bikes, all of it. And lugging those trailers around, they're big. And so I do see this as a real benefit of not having to get your trailer out every single time. So again, really good work, very thorough. Any other comments? Questions been called? Don, will you take the roll?
Senator Guru. Excuse. Senator Landon. Senator Salazar. Senator Schuler. Chairwoman Ellis. 4 ayes, 1 excused.
I see that Senator Cost and Schuler are both co-sponsors.